Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Vedantic Contemplation, Nididhyasana, Nididhyasana for managing emotional reaction. So very interesting. And I did get the email, and I do see you up the front there. So I was reading this, managing emotional reaction. It's very interesting because, let's say that's something I definitely need. I guess the thing for me is that how do I say? I've handled most of my suffering through intellect. Perhaps not necessarily, perhaps jnana a bit. Still not strong. So meaning that obviously if there's a very deep emotional um, something very emotional happens, I don't know if that could help me. So and then I don't want to meditate. Weird to say that, but at the same time, I don't mind to. It's just that it has to be the right atmosphere or the right um, situation. So, for example, I have a feeling that when something very emotionally traumatic happens, I have a feeling that's when I can do it. Because, um, generally speaking, that's when you'll probably be suffering the most and when you'll need a very powerful um, philosophy or whatever it is to, I won't say numb it, but to coil it, to quiet it down, to make it manageable at the very least. So I think this is probably something that's, well, for me, interesting because I kind of want to hear what he has to say about managing emotional reaction. So emotional reaction, meaning that it's not something that built up over time. It's something again that happened in an instant, and it's a reaction to it. That's what I'm understanding from the title. That's why I'm like, that's very interesting. Emotional reaction. You don't have time to think. So again, my process is not really good at this because it's again I have to process the thing, and something that's a reaction to something. It's too quick to happen. But anyways, obviously something can happen really quickly and then you can process it over time. How you process it's up to you. I generally think about things, think about the situation itself. That's how I've handled it myself throughout ever since my college days, and then ever since reacting to videos like this where um, you have that detachment, and then you also have an understanding that you are not the emotion. I mean, detachment not in the sense that like you're pulling away from it, but more along the line saying that you're not that. So essentially that you're not the emotion. Detachment or not the emotion. Anyways, let's go get started. It's a pretty decently long one.
Okay, good. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Very good. Nice to see you all. And glad to have all the students joining us online. This is our next session of the advanced meditation. I think we missed last month. I think I wasn't feeling well on that particular day. There are so many ways to practice Nididhyasana. It's like prayer. How many ways are there to pray? As many people as there are that many ways to pray. So what I'm trying to do in these sessions is to give you ideas on how you can practice Nididhyasana. And one of my favorite ways of practicing Nididhyasana is actually a practice that's not done formally, sitting and meditating, but a kind of Nididhyasana you can do while you're at work, while you're cooking dinner, while you're on the phone, or while you're engaged in other activities. There's a parallel. Karma yoga is basically taking prayer with you throughout the day. And so I'd like to describe to you a particular practice of taking Atma Vichara and Nididhyasana with you throughout the day. And this is not something I've invented. It's something that's done regularly. But it is an advanced practice, which is why we're doing it here. To do Nididhyasana while you're at work doesn't mean to sit and meditate while you're at work. That's not the technique I'm about to share with you. But rather, it's an extension of Atma Vichara, self-inquiry, and a very important extension that you can do while you're engaged, while you should do while you're engaged in various activities. Let me just be more concrete and explain it to you very, very directly. There are 4 steps. I'll describe each one of the 4 steps. And the first step, the best time to do Nididhyasana, is when you get upset. Now that may seem counterproductive, because notice here in our sessions, what do we do? Before you do the actual Nididhyasana, you first do meditation. So meditation is kind of the opposite of being upset, but the technique we're going to do today is based on taking a moment during the day when you get upset about something. And let's just create a scenario and use that scenario throughout. Suppose you're at work and your boss yells at you for some reason or another. Has that ever happened to you? Of course not. Who would yell at you? It happens. All right. I remember once I got in big trouble. Anyway, we won't go into those details. So, the first step is to choose a trigger. And boss yelling at you would be a good trigger, but it could be anything. And specifically, the trigger for doing this technique should be when your boss shouts at you and you get hurt? Or how about when you get angry and shout at somebody else? Or whatever it is. But when there is, let's try to be more specific, an uncontrolled emotional reaction, that's when you should do it. When there is an uncontrolled emotional reaction. By the way, there are certain physical indicators that if you want to observe for a trigger, one trigger would be if your voice is raised. Why should it be raised? Even at home, even with children, why should your voice be raised? If your voice is raised, something's going on. That's a good trigger. Another trigger, and this was a practice I did until I didn't need to do it anymore. And that is, whenever I felt hurt, when I felt hurt, I would always feel, and you may or may not feel this, I would feel a sensation right here, exactly, underneath that sternum, I guess it's called. And I would feel that kind of tension or a sinking feeling or what. You may have some other feeling, I don't know. But I suspect it's not only me who feels that. So my practice then was whenever I felt that tension, that sinking feeling in my chest, that was a trigger I would pay attention to. So when I had that trigger, it's time to do Nididhyasana. Now, so the first of the 4 steps is have a trigger.
I was hoping he would say, please make sure you don't confuse it with having a heart attack either, though, because obviously that's where your heart is, and I've not had one. Forget what the triggers are for heart attacks. I know it's like, well, actually, I don't know what it's like. But chest pains, though, is definitely a trigger for it. I do remember that part. So again, if you feel something there, first make sure it's not a heart attack. Then when it's not, then please continue.
And a trigger that tells you that an uncontrolled emotional reaction has taken place. Step 1, trigger. Step 2 is an emotional analysis of what's going on. Or in more common language, tune in to your emotions. People like to use that language. Fine. Tune into your emotions, which means really understand deeply what you're feeling and why. And sometimes it's more complicated than you think. Before we get into the complication, in the middle of an argument is not a good time to do this practice. So if you're shouting at someone or if somebody's shouting at you, when the argument is over, immediately, and the sooner the better, as soon as the argument or whatever it is, a tense situation, as soon as it's over. So during the argument or whatever, you probably notice the trigger going off, sort of like an alarm clock. Zzzt, oh. But you're still in the middle of the situation, so you say, okay, as soon as I'm done, then I'm going to deal with this. That's step 1. Step 2 now is leave the situation behind. Just go to some kind of quiet place, sit down, and begin this emotional analysis, emotional inquiry, tuning into your emotions. Suppose you feel hurt. Boss has yelled at you, you feel hurt. Okay. Why do you feel hurt? Just to feel I'm hurt doesn't solve anything. Why do I feel hurt? And you say, because my boss is such a blank, blank, blank. These words come in our minds, right? So, how does that, is that really tuning into your emotions? Why are you blaming your boss? Who's the one who feels hurt? Not your boss. You're feeling hurt. So, to focus on your boss, why did he say that? Why did he do that? Didn't he understand this and that and the other thing? That's not emotional analysis. That's self-defense. You're defending yourself. Maybe you couldn't defend yourself to the boss's face, so after the fact, you're trying to make excuses for yourself and blame the boss. All of that is counterproductive. So notice already this technique presumes a pretty great degree of emotional maturity. Not everyone can do what we're describing. Again, this is an advanced meditation class, and it assumes also, I suppose, some fairly some degree of emotional maturity. Okay, so instead of blaming your boss, you ask yourself very honestly, why do I feel hurt? And there are kind of two ways, two strains, two paths that inquiry might follow. Suppose you didn't do anything wrong. Absolutely, whatever your boss was, it's 100% clear that your boss made a mistake in his or her assessment of you in a situation. So knowing your boss made a mistake, then why are you hurt? People make mistakes all the time, right? We all make mistakes. Your boss made a mistake. You understand your boss made a mistake. Right now, I'm giving you the pattern. I'm modeling the kind of self-inquiry. If my boss made the mistake, why am I hurt? I've made mistakes. I've shouted at people because I've made a mistaken assessment. So if he's in the wrong, then, and I know I'm okay, I know I'm in the right, then why am I hurt? Then next step.
I'll say this is kind of strangely similar to what I kind of do. Again, I'm not perfect at it, and I still do get defensive, of course. It is human nature to be like that, but, you know, but it's obviously better to not get too defensive and to do exactly what he's talking about. It's to come to realization of what's the truth. Your feelings doesn't matter at the time. Don't get me wrong, your feelings happen for a reason, but that's not what you need to pay attention to. You need to realize what is the truth of the situation and calmly discuss that. It's kind of hard though. Obviously, we are human beings, so we have emotions, but to kind of put that aside and to come to reality.
Oh, he seems to doubt my capabilities. He seems to think I'm not a good employee, I'm not a good worker, I'm not intelligent, I'm not good enough. This is what it comes down to. If my boss is yelling at me unfairly, he must think I'm not good enough. Am I good enough? Now, again, you might, if the boss is really in the wrong, you say, but I am good enough. So if I'm good enough, then why do I feel hurt? That's interesting. This is a very important kind of analysis that we do. And it's all so far we're not talking any Vedanta. This is all emotional analysis. So you take it down the other layer and said, well, he's doubting my being good enough. That doubt hurts me. He doesn't trust me. He doesn't believe in me. He doesn't like me. All these emotional things come out. When you go deep enough into it, you discover all of this stuff. It's not just children who have these feelings. Grown adults have that feeling, oh, he doesn't like me. If you feel that, it happens. It's normal. And as I said, not just the children. So then, why do I want to be liked? Now we're starting to get towards Vedanta at this point. And then you start to realize that what's happened is he is doubting something about or disliking something about your personality. Let's stay with that. He doesn't like me. Why? There's some trait I must have that he doesn't like. What trait? Another layer down. But at some point, we have to start flipping from this emotional analysis to a Vedantic analysis. I think you get the idea that emotional analysis is like going down a rabbit hole. It just keeps going and going, but it's important. Notice we started with a boss yelling at you and feeling hurt, and now you've drilled down, so to speak, in a situation to the extent that you get it. There's something about me that my boss doesn't like.
I wonder if you could say this too. Like, for example, maybe it's not not the personality. Like, say you did something wrong, and he yells at you for doing something wrong, and you feel sad about it, and you're like, Well, it's not that you feel sad because he doesn't like you. You feel sad because you failed your boss. You failed at your job. You failed at your duty. So it's not about getting the boss to like you, but about doing your job correctly. Praise, if your boss praise you because you done it right, that's just bonus. You're not seeking your boss's approval necessarily, but you are, I guess in a sense, it's I guess you would say you're kind of seeing your self-worth a little bit there, where you're saying, I say I can do this, I know I can do this, but I failed at doing what I say that I can do, and I don't feel right about it. So I want to correct that. I want to make sure that whenever I say I can do something, that I am doing it correctly. And this is something that I kind of get on my boss about too. I always tell him I'm a cautious worker. I like to say that I'm a cautious worker, meaning that I won't necessarily take steps if I don't know what is acceptable for the company. My boss always says, just go ahead, it's not working, so we'll fix it. It's like, well, yes, but I don't know what I can and cannot do. It depends on the situation. So, um, if obviously I know I can do something, I'll do it. But if I don't know if I can or cannot do something about it, I don't want to make the situation worse. And now, bring up modern day where security is a major thing, and well, me being safe and being a little bit safe now, make sure I don't do anything that I'm not supposed to do, plays into that safety. So, anyways, it's about making sure that I do it correctly, and that if I fail at my job, that I need to make sure I am capable of doing my job. And then if the boss praises me, or if I do it right, that's the main concern. Again, it's your job to do it. You want to make sure you're doing it correctly, and feeling bad just tells you that you care about what you're doing. Because if it's like, oh, my boss is yelling at me because I messed that up, like, psh, who cares? That shows that you don't care about your job. But if you feel bad because you did something wrong, that shows, hopefully, that you care about your job and that you want to do it correctly. So it's not about seeking approval from the boss. Maybe it's more along the lines of kind of self. How do you say self? I guess when you say you are something, that you are that. If you say that you can do something, that you can do that. It's self-reputation, I guess. It seems kind of bad, but it's. I think, in my opinion, it's a good thing. So basically, if you say that you can do something, that you can do something, and if you can't, you feel bad about it, because you're then lying to people, saying I can do that, and you can't. You realize that you can't. You're like, oh man, I just lied to people, saying that I can do something, even though I can't. So, and you feel bad about it, but that's a good thing, because then you say, you know what, I realize I lied to people, and I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't lie to people. I shouldn't tell people I can do something that I cannot do. It shows, excuse me, it just shows that you care. So anyways, just throwing that out there. It's the way how oddly enough, when I'm talking about that, I get on my boss about this a lot. I always pick on my boss too, though. So, anyways,
Leading that there's something wrong with me. All of this is emotional. All of this is psychological. Now, let's make the switch from emotion to Vedanta. So step 1 was trigger. Step 2 was the emotional analysis we've just completed. Now step 3. And we'll start with that. There's something wrong with me. Wait a minute. Nothing wrong with Satchidananda Atma. So
it's perfect.
I know through these teachings, again, advanced technique presumes a lot of Vedantic understanding prior to this practice. So, if my true nature is such, if I am Satchidananda, if I'm just pure consciousness, nothing wrong with me. But then my boss is not upset with pure consciousness. My boss is upset with me as an individual, in particular with my personality. There's something about my personality that pushes my boss's buttons, suppose, whatever it is. And again, when you do this, it all has to be your lived experience. I'm just giving you a common example. So now you're beginning to discern between you and personality. And if these teachings of Vedanta have gone in deeply enough, you know that personality is something you possess. It's external to you. It's a little bit like clothing. You are covered, so to speak, by your personality. By the way, if you remember studying the Pancha Kosha, we're talking about Manomaya Kosha. That's personality. So this is an as-though covering to Atma. So there's something about my Manomaya Kosha that my boss doesn't like. Well, wait a minute. So he doesn't like it. What is it to me? Consciousness. Suppose someone doesn't, and allow me just to go off in a different direction to give an example. Suppose somebody doesn't like your clothing. You like it. Then it's not you. If you get it, that clothing is just cloth, maybe there's a design on the fabric. And someone says, what a weird design. Who would say that? I don't know. But the point I'm making, a trivial observation about something that's not even you. Why would you worry about it? If somebody doesn't, some people like it, some people don't like it. How about personalities? Same thing. Some people like it, some people don't like it. Do you think everyone in the world is going to like your particular personality? Don't you think there'd be at least a few people out there who don't? Of course. So, is there anyone that everyone loves? No, such a person does not exist. If you might be thinking, wait a minute, what about Dalai Lama? Everyone loves him. Do you know there's a big controversy, and there's a whole group of Tibetan Buddhists who are against the Dalai Lama. They go out, when he gives a public lecture, they stand outside and protest. So even everyone doesn't like do you think the Dalai Lama feels, oh, they don't love me? Yeah, that's this is the point we're coming to. So they don't like something about your personality, but you are not that personality. The Dalai Lama is not going to feel hurt because there are Tibetan Buddhists protesting his public program. In the same way, if these teachings of Vedanta have really gone in for you, and you understand that some people can take exception with certain traits of your personality, and it's perfectly okay because some people will like it, some people won't like it. That's nature. And then last step, if we're still in step 3, last step is this. Okay, so he doesn't like some trait about my personality, and I know that I am independent of that personality. Then why am I hurt? Because There is lingering identification with that personality. In other words, that I am pure consciousness hasn't sunk in 100%. I still feel intimately associated with that aspect of my personality. Dehatma buddhi, lingering identification, which is exactly what Nididhyasana is meant to address. Okay, so you recognize, that's why I felt hurt. I felt hurt because of this lingering identification with my personality. And let me say here that whatever is the situation, could be a zillion different situations, you getting angry, the other person getting angry, you getting hurt, whatever it is, but you're always going to end up at the same place. Lingering identification with your personality, with your mind, with your body, whatever. It's all, that's what Nididhyasana is for, right? The purpose of Nididhyasana is to overcome this lingering identification. And we've had that discussion in prior sessions. We won't go further now. So before we move on to step 4, let's review. Step 1, trigger some uncontrolled emotional reaction. Step 2 is of thorough emotional analysis. Step 3 is a Vedantic analysis. We're leading you to recognize that the emotional reaction was the result of lingering identification with your body, with your mind, with your emotions, with your role as a engineer or doctor or whatever is your employment, whatever it is. So whatever is the situation, there's a trigger, emotional analysis, Vedantic analysis, leading you to recognize the lingering presence of some kind of identification. Now, step 4. Step 4 is having recognized the lingering identification. Step 4 is then to, and the best term I can think of is to rest in yourself. To rest in yourself means to detach from whatever it is you are identified with and be who you are. To be who you are is to be pure consciousness. Of course, you already are pure consciousness, so you need to come home, so to speak, and rest in your true self. And formal meditation is the best way to do that. So step 4 is meditate. And meditate specifically to come home, to rest in your true self, to appreciate that you are Satchidananda Atma and everything else is external to you. Your boss is external to you, your clothes, your body, your personality, everything about your mind and intellect, all of that is the outer trappings of being a human being, but your essence is Satchidananda Atma, pure consciousness. That's step 4. So, again, the 4 steps. Trigger, leading to emotional analysis, leading to Vedantic analysis, and final recognizing the lingering identification, and finally, the 4th step, come home. Rest in yourself, practice meditation. Now, this 4th step, it might not be convenient to do it with steps 1, 2, and 3. Steps 1, 2, and 3, the best time to do it is as soon as possible. Whenever you got triggered, then if you can do it immediately after, that's ideal. If you can do it several hours later, that's fine. If you do it in the evening, that's fine. But the sooner you do it, the more effective it will be, because it's all fresh in your mind, so to speak. And the fourth step, meditation, it may or may not be convenient to do, again, as soon as it's convenient. But these are the 4 steps. By the way, these 4 steps are not the only way to do this. I'm just giving you an example of a common practice, but there's, I think, a lot of wisdom in these 4 steps, and it was, I tell you honestly, it was very formative for me. This was my practice for a long, long time, basically, until you don't need to do it. The day comes when you don't need to do it anymore.
Like I said, amazingly enough, some of that I've actually already done. At least the first 2. Not necessarily the trigger, but I am aware when something would trigger. You have to be aware of it, because that way you can start prepping for it. Now, obviously it's going to be an emotional reaction, because you don't know what people are going to say. You don't know what people are going to do. So your emotions are generally going to be reactive to things. And, I didn't know how to take that initially at the very beginning of this video, but I get it. But again, it's the, how do I say, it's the big ones are the ones that are going to be very troublesome. But what he's talking about here seems to be like the everyday kind of thing, which is something that, obviously people still struggle with, but that I've been working on for a little bit already. I've already, how do I say, I've already understood the detachment part. I've understood the reasoning behind. So basically, step 1, 2, and 3. I don't do the meditation part. Not necessarily. I mean, I don't meditate per se, but I do think about it. I don't know if that's the same thing as meditation or not, honestly. I think about this situation, depending on how severe it is, of course. I don't always think about every situation, because not every situation has a very visceral or very explosive emotional reaction. But obviously we do have emotional reaction. So you can't always know when it's going to happen, but I always do think about it. I'm always prepped for it, and I try to reason with it, which is the step 2, and then always remember that I'm not my emotions. I'm detached from it, which can be hard sometimes.
Why don't you need to do it anymore? You don't get triggered. If you don't get triggered, you don't need to do it. It's like any kind of practice. You need to do it when you need to do it. When the need goes, like you're taking medicine. How long do you take the medicine? Until the problem goes away. If you're going on a diet and doing exercise, how long to do exercise is different. You're going on a diet, how long to do the diet? Because we're supposed to exercise all the time, right? Okay. You're going on a diet, how long should you stay on a diet? Until your weight is what you want. So practices don't go on forever. Even Nididhyasana, when it has fulfilled its purpose, you're done. When are you done? When you don't feel triggered, meaning when these uncontrolled emotional reactions fade away. All right, there's much more we could talk about at this point, but we want to include meditation. So the meditation we'll do this evening would be a very good example of coming home.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. If you want to watch the meditation, please go to the description or copy and paste my title without the react. It should take you to his video. So, again, I do these things without really thinking about it per se. Again, there's no way to genuinely be prepared to emotional reaction, because it'll happen. You just don't know when. You can prepare all the time, but it kind of gets exhausting. It can be exhausting, so I just take it as it is. And I do think about the things a lot. That way, it's managed and not it doesn't get out of control. I mean, it's not gotten out of control. It's not getting out of control. It's just that I don't want to make things worse because I feel I'm speaking through my emotions instead of a reasonable spot. I guess you can say. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm a little sick. So, anyways, yeah, you don't want to make the situation worse. So I think about the scenario, about why things happen. Why is this person like this? Why is this person acting this way towards me? If this person doesn't know me, then obviously it's just doing it out of hate, which is it's meaningless, and I just ignore it. I'm not triggered by it at all because the person doesn't know me. But if the person knows me, then I care. I care as to why all of a sudden the change of attitude, because I want to correct it. I care about the person, so I want to make sure that our relationship stays good. It's not necessarily about being attached as well, but understanding that in order to fix something, you have to kind of care for it, but you can also be somewhat detached from it. So I guess how I reason it is, when you care for something, you're clearly going to be attached to it. The care is attachment. I think. I mean, you can try to prove me wrong, but I don't know if you can say that I care for something, but are literally completely detached from it. I don't think that's. I don't think that's possible. But at the same time, just because you're attached to something doesn't mean you have to suffer for it. Attachment doesn't always equate to suffering in my book. I have an attachment to my phone. I like the phone, I use it, but if it breaks, I'm not attached to it. I mean, I'm not going to let it suffer. Let me suffer. I'll be like, well, that sucks. I have to buy me a new phone now. And the attachment is just making sure I take good care of it, that I don't break it, because it's a necessary tool now in order to kind of live in society. Has all the information in your fingertips, So it's a necessary tool. So I do care for it because I want to take care of it, so I don't have to buy another one. But if it breaks, then I'm not attached to it in the sense that I'm gonna suffer. My wallet will suffer, absolutely, but I won't suffer as bad because I'm not like attached in that sense. But I am attached in the sense that I want to take care of it. I wonder if that makes sense. I don't, and maybe I am BSing myself right here, probably, but I don't think so. I won't say it's complicated, but it's an understanding of the attachment and detachment part of something to someone. So my attachment to my phone, it's caring for, it's practical. And if it breaks, I understand that, eventually it's going to break. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, that's my reaction to Vedantic Contemplation, Nididhyasana, for managing emotional reaction. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, the sound down below. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next vid.